Hi, it's John, and welcome to the channel. Great to have you along today. Now, it's just after 11 a.m. on the 28th on Wednesday. You're seeing this on Thursday morning. Thanks for being here on the channel. I do appreciate it. We've got a special guest with us today, and I'm really pleased today. Oh, by the way, big blue mug of coffee. I want to tell everybody I've got my mug. Everybody asks about that. Cory Morgan joins me today. Cory from the Western Standard, as you can tell, you can see it right behind his head there, the Cory Morgan Show, and the author of the Sovereigntist Handbook as well. We're going to talk about the Alberta independence movement today. And Cory, thanks so much for being part of my channel. I do appreciate it.
Oh, happy to be on. I've been loving watching your shows lately.
Well, thank you very much. I wanted to start off by talking to you and asking you what you thought of the throne speech yesterday, and if there was anything in there that made you think that the federal government was going to be friendlier to Alberta, or if you didn't hear anything at all.
I didn't hear anything at all. I heard, I guess, kind of what I expected to. I mean, I understand you're not going to get specifics in a throne speech. It's high level, it's fluff, it's sort of setting a tone for a session. But you do talk about some goals. We wanted to make it clear that, Canada is a sovereign nation. He certainly reiterated that, but he never touched on the fact that we've got a unity issue going on in this country, and throwing a bone to the West to try and make them feel a little more comfortable that something might change. I didn't hear any of that. He wasn't speaking to Western Canada with that throne speech. And
that was something I was thinking about. I haven't heard him say much of anything. I know he was on the CBC yesterday. He was asked about Alberta independence. I just quickly jotted it down here. He said, this is the greatest country in the world, and this is a country that works. And then he went into his Alberta spiel about him living north of Edmonton and living around the oil sands, but he's never really committed to doing anything about building pipelines. Even with the fact that Danielle Smith has been very, very clear on what she wants from the federal government.
Yeah, he's dodging it like the plague, and he's got a balancing act. There are a number of members in his caucus who are virulently opposed to pipelines, more than just Guilbeault, who is a lunatic, and he always will be opposed to the pipelines. But he's got a balancing act. I mean, he has, to some degree, or at least in perception, pulled the Liberal Party to the right, and Trudeau had spent 10 years pulling that Liberal Party to the left, and he's got a lot of the leftovers of Trudeau in that caucus, and he's got to try and figure out how to balance it in keeping them happy while trying to keep Alberta happy. And I think he's going to side, as usual, on the side of central Canadian leftists and just talk out of both sides of his mouth, but nothing is going to get done.
Do you see, well, let me just say, I see pipelines as almost a symbol of the independence movement out here a little bit. I think if we had a logo, we could put a pipeline right through the middle of it. I mean, Alberta, a lot of our wealth is because of oil. A lot of the wealth in Canada is because of the oil. A lot of the wealth in Quebec is because of Alberta's oil, and people resent the fact that we give so much money to the East and we're disrespected. They really don't care much about us. They didn't win hardly a seat here during the election. And very little is done about this from the federal government. Mark Carney, do you think he can change? He's Mr. Net Zero, this guy. I mean, he is anti-oil other than buying a few when he was with Brookdale Pipelines, I mean.
Well, that's it. He's just clear in his book. I mean, he's an ideologue. He wants net zero. He wants this electric transition. With all of them, they bring in that cognitive dissonance over the fact that we just don't have the ability to transition to an electric world, even if we wanted to. We don't have the generating capacity, the transmission capacity, and they will just continue to. They seem to think if they can shut down conventional energy enough that new energy is just going to blossom like a daisy and replace it. And what it's doing, unfortunately, is turning Canada into an economic basket case while we lag in productivity and GDP per capita versus other developed countries around the world. They aren't in reality. They won't face that reality. The banker refuses to face the fact that Canada is becoming one of the poorest developed nations on earth per capita. And he won't do anything to change that trajectory. We've got the resource right here. We've got oil and gas. The world wants it. And he's dragging his feet. It would be so easy for him. He's enough of a pragmatist just to say, we're going to get it done. That's all he has to say. Like, just say it definitively. We're going to build a pipeline, and we're going to do it in short order. We're going to get rid of C-69. We're going to lift the emissions cap. And the fact that he's giving nothing but weasel words just says, no, he has no intention whatsoever of doing any of those things.
Would it matter to you if he did, I did a video the other day saying I really don't care what Mark Carney says. I'm an Alberta independent. I know you don't want us to use the other word. You said that in one of your videos, and I agree with you 100%. I mean, it's become a dirty word, and people use it like a dirty word online when it comes to people talking about independence out here. But does it matter what Mark Carney and the Liberal Party do at this point? If they gave everything to Danielle Smith, does it make a difference to you when it comes to the independence movement here? I know you wrote a book on it, for goodness sakes.
Yeah, to me, it won't make a difference. I've been on this for a depressingly long time.
Yeah.
But my issue is with the system, and that's what brings me to the conclusions I have. It's a fatally flawed system, and at best, when we change parties or more favorable parties, it's just a temporary bit of reprieve from a system that's still going to keep serving the central part of the country at the expense of the others. But and yourself, when we speak on these, we're speaking now to getting close to into the 40% of people who agree with us. If he came around and did some of those things, we'd be speaking maybe to 20% again of the population. Like people like me, they're not going to convince, but they're convincing what's getting close to a tipping point of Albertans that this system is broken. And that is where they've got to pay attention. But nothing's going to change my mind. But he could deflate the movement. He most certainly could.
What does it say to you? I think Danielle Smith even said that. I read an article within the last couple of weeks saying if he were to come out and give a little bit to Alberta, as far as the demand she's talked about, that it would deflate the independence movement out here. What does it say to you that he hasn't done that? And I call it the liberal shuck and jive, basically. And that's what he's been doing recently regarding Alberta, our oil and gas industry.
Yeah, well, it shows that reality of that system. He doesn't, even if he personally cares what Alberta thinks, even if he really agreed with those things, it's not politically wise to bend to demands from Alberta because you need to gain your votes in Quebec and Ontario. It's just math. And the House of Commons has followed that math for generations now, and that's why nothing ever changes substantially.
Do you think they talk about trade barriers coming down between the provinces? Do you think there's any chance of, I think it's an easy thing to do, an easy thing to say, but I think there'll be some holdouts regarding different goods. I think Quebec will be a huge holdout. We've heard David Eby and BC talk recently. He talks about CO2 and not about pipelines. Do you think that those trade barriers being dropped will help at all with this movement out here, or at least Alberta's place in Canada, I guess is the best way to say it?
No, he doesn't have the courage to take on the provinces. Supply management. Speaking of the words that must not be uttered, that's one of the worst, most odious on many levels of policies that we have. But it puts huge roadblocks up from province to province to province in this country, and he won't touch it with a 10-foot pole. So if he doesn't have the courage to say that he's going to get rid of that rotten policy, then he's not going to fix anything. He's just going to tinker with a couple of things. Oh, we'll make sure BC can sell a little more wine in Alberta, and we'll move a couple of minor things. But if you're talking real barriers, he doesn't have the courage to take on 3 years with that.
Let me ask you, how do you feel right now as somebody who wrote a book on this? You're somebody who was actively looking for independence years ago, and for the lack of a better word, you failed doing it. Right.
Oh, yeah.
Long time ago.
Brilliantly.
Yeah, a long time ago, because you didn't know what to do. I listened to your book when I was out in my garage last year working on my bikes. How do you feel things are going right now? Do you think people have learned? Do you think people maybe read your book and are using it as a bit of a guide? Or do you think that some of the failure is continuing right now?
A bit of both. I mean, the book has been selling fantastically. I was quite surprised, for a book that I thought did all right a couple of years ago. And I've sold more copies of it in the last month than I did in the prior 2 years, which is not unexpected considering the climate. But the fact that people are drawn to it, that's what I'm hearing from people that's different this time around. People are saying, I'm there, but what do I do? And I'm offering what I know, at least, and I don't have all the answers, as I like to say often. I'll show you a whole bunch of things not to do anyways, so we can avoid going down that path. And I do certainly provide some things I think we should do. But the appetite for people is help me so I can get on this, teach me to become active. That's what's been really fascinating in some of the rallies I've gone to, meetings I've gone to, non-political people coming up to me. I'm used to seeing the same old faces. But here's ones that people have never been politically active in their life, and they're saying, I'm going to get up and I'm going to go out to something and I'm going to ask and see what I can do. So, but the movement itself, there's no central leadership, no consistent messaging. some of the messaging, to be blunt, is outright abrasive and actually probably doing damage to the movement. That's atypical. That's not new as well. And I don't have a quick, clear answer on how to solve that yet. This has to evolve to somewhere with a little more of a defined path for people. As I said, they're asking, but I'm having a hard time pointing them to say, well, join this or do that. I mean, the Alberta Prosperity Project, they've done some good work. They've done a lot of groundwork and other groups, but at the same time, they're going to cap out, and they don't appeal to a large enough number of people, I think, yet. Anyway.
One of my concerns are this. I mean, I've got a little bit of political fatigue right now. I don't know whether you do. I certainly do after the election campaign. Yeah. It's summertime. I'm more interested in going on my bike than talking about politics right now. I'm wondering if some of the momentum might be lost over the summertime. And as we get further away from the election into the fall, I think September 15th, government comes back, but people are just going to lose interest in this. Do you have that feeling, or are you fearful of that, I guess is the way to put it?
Not exactly. I think it might almost be kind of what we need. A bit of a cool down. People are tired. They're angry. Give them a break, because, I mean, we still got to keep at it. Those of us who are active with it, and the political junkies, and the issues are important, and the groundwork has to be done. I mean, if we're looking at a year before a referendum, it's going to go fast. But all the same, a lot of people, too, are also not just tired, but they're giving a bit of a wait and see. I mean, it's just been the throne speech. The session's just starting. By fall, when finally it looks like a grudging budget is going to be released, even though he didn't want to, that's when it's really going to be driven home, I think, though, that, as I'm expecting, very little is going to change. There's going to be no more excuses anymore. People are ready for another political season. I guess you could say the summer's over. They've done the barbecues. They've been out in the RV. They've been riding the bikes, and they're ready to put their heads back down on things. And they're going to be rejuvenated. And hopefully the movement will have evolved itself a little better to capture by that point.
You talked about the abrasiveness. I think, being critical of the government's fine, but being critical and disrespectful to the flag in Canada. I think you've mentioned that. What do you make of the Republican Party of Alberta? They had a get together just a few nights back. 1,000 people showed up there. They seem to be, I've heard them described as the PPC of Alberta. What do you think about that?
Yeah, kind of. And I actually was at a gathering the other night. I spoke with Cam Davies. I've known him for quite a while. Yeah. Smart guy, a good communicator. As I said to him the other night, I just don't know what you're trying to do. Yeah. He gave some of the lines, just saying that there should be an option out there, something to keep the provincial government honest and to fill the void and things. Okay. But I just don't share the notion that that's a good idea right now. We're into an interesting spot with the Olds Didsbury by-election coming up. They're going to run in it. And it is just, I think, out of good fortune in a sense, or bad, who knows. But that's the strongest riding in all of Alberta for Western independence support. It's the one and only that ever elected in a Western independence MLA. So if anywhere, the Republican Party might come in at 20 or 30% with frustrated Albertans in there, but I think it would show a false showing of strength for that party. You're taking them during a by-election when nobody's afraid to make a vote because it's not going to disrupt the government. Right. It's a good time to send a message. It's the best waters to fish in for that type of vote. But we have to remember that's the absolute best in the province you're going to get. So if they're getting 20% there, it's going to be 10% elsewhere. I worry. I worry a good showing would actually, ironically, be bad for the independence movement.
Do you see somebody like a Cam Davies leading this movement, or is he just too much of an outsider? Or, again, maybe somebody who's kind of throwing a monkey wrench into the works?
I can't understand his motivations.
Yeah, I don't either, and that's what I've been trying to figure out. Yeah.
I'll put it at that. I mean, again, he's smart and well-spoken and knows the things. He's an organizer, but no, I can't see him take and just to be blunt, and I mean the thing was too with Cam, he was at a meeting where people were pretty rough on him there. I mean, the guy's got the skin of an alligator, and I'll give him that. You need it for this type of world, but he's just they're garnering some support in some areas, but for the most part, people are kind of pissed with him. So again, I'm not sure why you're just plowing on ahead. Uh, by the same token, with the old Didsbury riding, though, if they come in with a real terrible show of support, it's going to be bad for the movement as well, because people say, "Oh, geez, if you can't even do well there, you're not going to do well anywhere." Which it's because, and that's kind of the hypothesis. It's in my book. It's what I keep talking about, because the party approach isn't the bloody way to do it. And so now, no matter whether they do well or they don't do well, it brings a whole new pile of hazards to the movement itself. But there's nothing to be done. It's a free province, and that's the name of the game. If you can start a party and get out there, then go to it, I guess.
And it's an unfortunate name of the party too.
It's dividing within an already divided movement.
It is. What advice do you have for the average person who's independence minded like myself? What should we do?
Boy, aside from what's in the book and educate themselves, I just keep encouraging people to build the grassroots around themselves. The old way of the Reform Party coffee meetings, where it was 5-6 people at a time. Get together with some friends, get together with some coworkers at the soccer game. Don't turn into an annoying fanatic. We got enough of those. But this is where the discussions really start. I've said it before. A person trusts a friend or a coworker or even a bar buddy one-on-one much more than people like yourself or me or Cam Davies or Danielle Smith, for that matter. That's where real hearts and minds get changed. So if they're convinced this is the route we want to go, then that's great. But start to spread that word, then do it on the ground and get it out there, moving amongst others. I mean, till the more formal organization comes along.
I have one more question after this. It's a big question. Be prepared. Okay. Do you think we can win?
Yes, but I think it's a long shot.
Okay.
If you'd asked me even a month ago, I would have said no, not a chance. But I still feel push for it. I mean, it's steps and steps. I know I'm getting grayer, but if I have to wait, 5 years, 10 years before a winning referendum, so be it. But I mean, if it could be next year, that's even more brilliant. I mean, the Ipsos Reid poll was shocking, and it says so much on how silent the legacy media has been on this. An Ipsos Reid CTV poll finding 47% of Albertans thinking favorably on independence. This should be rocking the nation, and the silence is deafening. But
I saw that poll myself. I looked at it, Cory, and I was concerned about doing a video on that because it was a nationwide poll of less than 2,000 people. I think the sample in Alberta was about 171 people. So
it was small, so that you can only read so much in. And there's also a world of difference between responding to a pollster saying, I support the concept, and actually putting your head down on a referendum when crossing the line. Let's say, though, it's even at 40. That's significant, very significant. Or the prior poll, I think it was Angus Reid, and that showed it at 37%, was it? Mm-hmm. That was a large sampling. That was a good, solid poll. So these are numbers done despite ourselves. These are numbers that are coming up without a widespread organization. And I know some APP people will get upset with me. And no, I know they're working hard and they're packing rooms and they're holding great meetings and they're doing a lot of really good work. But reaching new people is difficult for them. So that 37%, I mean, a portion of that could be attributed to the organizational work of groups like the APP, but a whole lot of it's organic. It's just people coming up with it to that conclusion on their own because of current events. So if it can be harnessed, if it can be organized, then no, it's not impossible. I'd still say, if I was a betting man, I'd have to take some odds before betting on getting out 2026 or having a yes vote. But boy, it's definitely within the realm of possibility now. Most definitely within that realm.
I hope so. You look at 95 and the referendum in Quebec got so close, they haven't had one since. If it's 30 years before I see another one here in Alberta, I probably won't see another one here in Alberta. I'll be too old. I'll be gone probably. I'll be 90 years old.
We'll see. And ironically, one of the worst things that can happen is a really close one. I mean, I think if it's going to come and we vote, I mean, hey, I want to see a win. But if it is 50% plus 0.1%, oh boy, we're in for a mess. Like you got to kick for the goal here. This has got to be beyond 50% comfortably.
Okay, I have one more question after this one.
Yeah.
If it were close, would Alberta be in a position like Quebec has been in? I mean, they've held the referendum, the separation thing against Canada for decades. Of course, the votes are much more important in Quebec to the people in Ottawa, but do you think it would help Alberta if it was a close vote for separation here?
I absolutely do, because if we're looking at 45% I mean, that we're not talking about a general, CTV poll or a poll held by the Standard or something like that. That was people on the ground campaigning. That's getting really close to the goalposts on this measure. I think it will shake up the country. It will wake people up and realize, even though we don't understand those Albertans, but okay, they're pretty turned upset. We've got to change something. Like, this is because if we don't change something, that number will continue to grow. They didn't just leave Quebec alone the day after that close vote, as you said. I mean, there has been a lot of work, a lot of concessions, a lot of pandering, which ironically led to more of the unity issues on this side of the country.
Yes.
But it would serve as a heck of a wake-up call to the rest of the nation that, if you really want to hold on to that concept of a whole and united Canada, you got to start doing something radically differently and soon, because it's going to keep growing if you leave it alone.
I've been critical, and you brought it up here, saying that there's really no leader. That's something I think we need. We need that figurehead. I saw Jason Kenney. He's been popping up talking about this a lot. Of course, Naheed Nenshi, the head of the NDP, be a by-election for him. He's going to use this against Danielle Smith, but he's a voice against the independence movement here of two big names here in the province for sure. We haven't got that person right now. Jeff Rath, certainly doing some good work. I appreciate what he's been doing. Smart man, lawyer. Cam Davies, whether you like what he's doing or not, at least he's a face out there talking about this issue. Wild Rose Independence Party. You're the guy who wrote the book on this. You know this inside out. Have you ever considered maybe leading up this movement? You wanted to do it years ago.
And I've changed and I've grown. Things I've learned a lot about, and being around a lot of actual, politicians and folks over the years now, and things I thought I wanted to be, and realizing I'm not the person for it. A leader is much more than the one who gets to the podium and can speak to the crowd, which I can do. I like to think fairly well, and speak to the movement and things fairly well. And I want to continue to do so. But leading takes a different sort of organizational skills and interpersonal skills, the ability to run committee meetings and
kiss babies and shake hands.
There's a lot to it, and I don't have all of those skills. I'm aware of it now, and I like to think I have a role in this movement, and I want to be as vocal and expand on it as much as possible. I'm comfortable saying a spokesperson for the concept by all means, but for an outright leader of some sort of organized function of some sort, I don't think I could quite hold that role very well. Communicator, sure, but the one manager, not so much.
This isn't going to be a very popular thing when you say, I wouldn't want to be a politician. I think they have to work too hard, and people are going to say you're nuts, John. I said no. Okay. I drove with an MPP of mine from Cornwall, Ontario, to the legislature in Toronto. I spoke with the Minister of Transportation there. A 5-hour drive, never said a word to the guy because he was on the phone working constantly on a Friday night. I couldn't do it. And people complained about Poilievre being a politician for 20 years. I don't know how you can be a politician for 20 years. It's a constant job, constantly working with the public. I just couldn't do it. I've been asked to run before, and there's no way I could do that job. Just much too hard.
No, it takes a special person.
It really does. So I want to send people your way. I think if people want to get information regarding really how to answer the questions, go to your personal YouTube, Cory Morgan. Of course, Western Standard, go subscribe to the Western Standard. One of the few places in the country that really, has our thoughts and our feelings in mind when it comes to presenting the news, giving us information. So go over there as well and get your book. I guess the place to get that is at Amazon, probably, right, Cory?
It's the easiest spot, unless you catch me at a function. I'm always carrying an armload when I go to those.
Sure. But again, I appreciate this very much. I'd like to chat with you again in the future. I appreciate you being here on my little channel. I'm a great admirer of you. I've been watching you for years. And how are the bees doing, by the way? I was just wondering.
They're doing well. I managed to get myself stung the other day and messed up, but that comes with it. But no, I really quite enjoy it. It's for a little bit of time each week. I'll get away from politics for a little bit. I think it's good for the soul and the mind.
I do. I've got political fatigue. I really do. Cory, thanks so much.
All right, thank you.
And thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate you being here. If you like the video, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications, and I will see you in the next one.